coming out of Larry's mouth started off in Trish's head. I mean, Larry's good, but behind every great candidate is a great policy director. So without further ado, Trish Lynch, come on up here to the stage.
Which microphone is this? This one works? This one does work?
Either one, just let me know and I'll adjust it for you.
Okay, so, hey everybody, I guess Tony just,
Stand over by that thing, so that's where my mic is.
Oh, then why don't I just use that mic?
That'll work.
Hey everybody, I know you guys don't exactly know what goes on behind the scenes all the time, but I'm going to tell you a little story here. About 2 years ago, I was coming back to the Libertarian Party, and everybody was talking about Larry Sharpe. Now, I had been away for a couple years. I did a master's degree. I lived my life, worked on drug policy, stuff like that. And a friend of mine from Pennsylvania, from around Scranton, said to me, oh, you know, Larry Sharpe, they're all talking Larry Sharpe. And I'm like, come on, the guy can't be all that. I don't do this hero worshiper thing. Like, it just was not in my nature to follow somebody. I'm a libertarian, don't tell me what to do. So, flash forward a couple months later, and I meet Larry at the Rhode Island convention. And we both had some very similar sort of feelings about what was going on in the Libertarian Party at the time. And I was paying for my ticket for this because it was a last minute thing. So I went down and I paid for my ticket, and Larry said, oh, you want a picture with me? And I go, I don't really do pictures with people. I don't really ask people for pictures. Again, this is the not following thing. You know, I don't really ask people for pictures with them. It's just not my thing. And I said, I let people ask for pictures with me. And he said, well, can I get a picture with you? And then we were interrupted. So a couple months later, I'm speaking at the Libertarian State Leadership Association. Larry's there also speaking. And he looks at me and he said, well, can we do that picture now? Like, he remembered from 2 months before, from a brief sort of like connection that we had, and all of a sudden it was, you know, that was like, it was like he knew, he remembered people, he made connections with people, he knew who they were, he talked to them, he knew what people wanted. This is why Larry became so big in the Libertarian Party, because he knew that there were problems to solve, and he needed to talk to people to find out what it was that they wanted, that they needed, what could make people happy. So, a month later, I get a call from Alex Merced, who is a mutual friend of mine and Larry's, and he said, well, would you come here and do drug policy? And I was like, sure, drug policy, that's easy. I've been doing that for 10 years, let's go. A few months later, Alex, you know, runs for vice chair of the Libertarian Party and doesn't have a lot of time, and it gets handed off to me, and I say, okay, we're taking this thing into overdrive. And we sat with Larry for hours and hours and hours and hours, and we all brainstormed all these solutions for all these problems that affect each and every New Yorker. It was a solution-oriented campaign. We wanted to make sure that people had those problems. We all have those problems. We all have the problems with what the state is doing to us. And we wanted to solve them, and while solving them, we didn't want to solve it by throwing money at it. We didn't want to solve it by taxing the hell out of everybody. What we wanted to do was find another way, and that's what we did. We found other ways. We found it for everywhere from drug policy to, you know, MTA to Safe Act stuff. We sat there and we said, what are the tools at our disposal and how can we make this happen? And so in the last couple months, this has been a snowball. Like, it started out in the Libertarian Party, and now it has grown so much larger and so much bigger. I am almost overwhelmed seeing how many people are here today. It is absolutely incredible. And this isn't about party politics or anything else. This is about New York Staters. I'm a New Yorker. I left New York for a while because I could not stay in New York. It just was not healthy for me. And now I dream of coming back to my home state. So if I can leave anybody with anything, it's that this is all you guys. This is what Larry went out, he talked to each and every one of you. He came back to us and said, these are the problems that I'm seeing. These are the problems that matter to people. Let's solve them. This has been all for you. And this is all driven by you. And you are all Larry's policy team. Thanks.
Thank you, Trish. Thank you very much. You might notice that I'm not wearing a Larry Sharpe t-shirt today.
We still love you.
Actually, I am wearing a Larry Sharpe t-shirt. No, I'm wearing a t-shirt that says I love New York.
Yes.
We're not here because we don't like our state. We love our state so much that we want to fight for it.
Yes.
Another thing I've heard over the past few days is that this is no year for a protest vote. That we have to show Washington, New York, how we feel. That this is no year for a protest vote. This is exactly the year for a protest vote. This is exactly the year that we say that these 70% of people that don't even bother to show up at the polls most years are willing to show up for freedom, for liberty, and for a new New York.
Yeah.
So when Larry Sharpe, you know, the next governor of New York, Larry Sharpe, even he's clapping for himself in that one. I mean, it's a trigger. It's a trigger. I get it. I want a new shirt that says, I love a new New York. So without further ado, let's bring up our next speaker. So this next speaker served us in the United States Army. I believe you're still in the reserves, right?
I'm still active duty.
You're still active duty, yeah. So thank you, Steve. Thank you very much. He's also serving as the Central New York Regional Director for the Sharpe campaign. And he brings a whole heck of a lot of energy to this room. So I hope you guys rested well last night because it's about to get crazy in here and loud. So without further ado, Steve Minot, come on up to the microphone.
Thank you guys, that was awesome. So I'd like to start off today by saying what an honor it is to speak to all of you. Larry, I'm sorry, this is not really a speech about you. I'm talking to everybody else here, right? The Larry Sharpe supporters. In the history of New York State politics, I could not think of another campaign or candidate that has a more dedicated group of followers than Larry Sharpe has. You guys should really be proud of how far we've come and kind of what this campaign has turned into. Any grassroots campaign, right, the backbone are the supporters. That's you guys. This is the backbone of any campaign. The ones who are willing to show up at these events, willing to harass all of their friends on social media, willing to get out there, get signatures, knock on doors, stand on the corner of the street and wave signs. Those are the people that make the difference. Our die-hard supporters, all of you. So on behalf of everyone on the campaign staff, thank you guys so much. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Steve Minogue, right? I'm the regional director for Central New York. I came to the Larry Sharpe campaign a little over 7 months ago. I interviewed with the statewide director, which is kind of funny. It's the only time I've ever had to interview for an unpaid position. I went to one Larry Sharpe event and was immediately inspired to get involved in any way that I could. If I had to guess, I would say 90% of everyone here in this room came to become a Sharpe supporter the same way. It really only takes seeing Larry speak once to immediately become motivated to take action to fix our state. This man has an uncanny ability to win over a crowd and is one of the most exciting speakers I've ever had the privilege of hearing.
Yeah.
Now, I want to give you guys a few examples of how Larry Sharpe has inspired people. I'm a political science major in college, so I'm already drawn to politics. I absolutely love this stuff. My wife could absolutely care less. Absolutely care less. I try to engage her on most nights, talking about political issues, maybe engage in a little bit of debate. But she wants no part of it. I took her to one Larry Sharpe event, and after it was over, we're getting back in the car, she looked over at me and she was like, "Babe, we're gonna get this man elected and we're gonna fix this state." Since that first event, she's become one of Larry's fiercest advocates. I should also mention, she's almost 7 months pregnant, and just last weekend helped us knock over 100 doors canvassing for Larry, because that's how much she cares about this election. So thank you to my smoking hot wife, Andrea, for everything you've done to make my job a little easier. Thank you so much. Now, another perfect example of how Larry Sharpe has stimulated people to get involved in the political process lies with two of my best volunteers in my region. This couple, they just turned 18 years old, and this is the first time that they will ever be able to cast a vote in any election. They started following Larry last Halloween, a year ago, right? When I took over, I reached out to them about volunteering. They were beyond excited to get involved. I've been able to count on these two for almost every single petitioning event and now every single canvassing event that we hold in our region. I want all of you to think back to when you were 18 years old. Many of us never even voted when we were 18, let alone advocate for a candidate or even volunteer in a campaign. Most of us were not doing those things. These two are Larry's ride or die supporters. They were literally there when he first announced his candidacy and have never let up since. There are no words to express my gratitude for everything you two have done for the campaign so far, and what an inspiration it has been to see your dedication to this campaign. Please, everyone in this room, you guys stand up. Join me in giving a round of applause for Maura Botsford and Andrew Yankowski. Come on. "18, guys. The first time they're ever going to get to cast a vote. And they're going for Larry Sharpe. I would also be remiss if I did not thank the team of Central New York volunteers that we have built over the last 7 months. We led the state in active petitioners during our petitioning period. We also now lead the state in canvassing. You are all part of that, and I cannot thank you guys enough. And I definitely want to point out right now, some of them are here, right? Maria, Rodney, Mary, Andrew, Rob, Maura, Aaron. Thank you guys so much for coming, making the trip. You guys are everything that makes our region successful, and I can't thank you guys enough. Our region would not be successful without the efforts of every single one of our volunteers, though, not just Central New York. Sacrificing personal time is a tough ask of any political campaign. But thanks to all of your hard work, this November, we're going to show the entire state that not just Central New York, of course Southern Tier as well, is Larry Sharpe country. Yeah. Now I'll switch gears a little bit, right? We will talk about Larry a little bit, which is obviously the reason we're all here. You're not here to see me speak. I definitely know that. One of the first things, even before going to hear Larry speak at an event, that drew me to him is the fact that he's a United States Marine veteran. Yes, absolutely. I've been in the Army myself for over 10 years now, serving as a combat medic, and I have a brother who is also a Marine veteran. I had the privilege of serving alongside U.S. Marines when I was deployed to Afghanistan. In combat, which is what New York State politics is, right? There is no one I would rather have by my side than my fellow soldiers, and especially United States Marines like Larry Sharpe. Our military personnel are truly the best that America has to offer. Our military veterans are trained to solve complex problems far better than someone who is a career politician. Right? I mean, it is going to take someone outside of politics to shine a light on these issues and offer the necessary solutions. Even if some of these solutions may seem radical, Larry is the guy for the job, and he's the man who's going to fight for all of us. Now, we get Larry elected, right? It will then be up to us to back him up after he wins this election. Larry often says, "I will break a hole in the system, but it's up to all of you to follow me through." Those are the words of a true leader. A real leader will always be the first one in. But without the support of those that he's leading, the whole mission falls apart and the leader stands alone. Just watching our supporters over the past 7 months tells us that when Larry Sharpe is our next governor, he will not be standing alone. Now, if we're going to make Larry our next governor, we have some work to do, folks. We have built up a lot of momentum over the last few months, and now is not the time to take our foot off the gas. We have 3 days left before Election Day. We have seen that in the polls that actually include Larry, he polls around 13%. That is extremely respectable, especially for a third-party candidate. It's unprecedented. That is not all, though. Among people who know Larry's name and his policies, that number jumps to 25%. We know that in a 5-way race, which is what this is, 30% wins the governor's mansion. That means it is up to all of us to improve Larry's name recognition. Get his message out there to the masses. If we get Larry's name recognition to even 75%, we win this election, guys. Win this election. Again, thank you all for everything you guys have done so far. It's been truly inspiring to see what this campaign has become and to have even played a small part in it. Let's call this what it is. It's more than a campaign for governor. This is a movement. This is truly a movement. We've created a movement, guys. It has been an honor, again, to be a part of this. It's truly inspiring to see how dedicated all of Larry's supporters are across this great state. And I know that even after this election, you will all carry the message of liberty forward so that we can have a freer New York State. Freer not just for us, but for our families and the future generations that will come after us. Now, I have one more thing to ask of you all before I go. I need everyone in this room to pledge that you will continue to harass your friends on social media, continue to insert Larry Sharpe into everyday conversation, continue to wave signs, continue to knock on doors, continue to spread the message of liberty, and continue to fight for a new New York. Hey, thank you guys so much. And before I go, if you have a drink in your hand, let's all raise our glasses for Larry Sharpe right here. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. It's been an honor to speak to you.
You know, Steve really inspires me every time I hear him speak. Hey, you know something you can do to harass your friends right now? Including the ones that aren't here? How many of you have a cell phone? Are you going live? Outstanding! If you're not going live and sharing with all your friends what's going on here, I mean, come on. This thing looks great on Facebook Live.
It does. It does.
It really does. And kind of piggybacking on something else that Steve said there, I want to just tell a quick story about how I first met Larry Sharpe. I first met him in person at a fundraiser for, in 2016, for a Senate candidate we had at the time, Alex Merced. A lot of you know who Alex Merced is. How many of you voted for Alex Merced? I did. A few of you, that's great. Love that. Love that. Larry was the MC at that event and also the auctioneer. And you know, he was auctioning off some local products like a 6-pack of beer. One of the things that's a big industry in this little town of Batavia, New York, which is between Rochester and Buffalo, is onions. It's the onion, Elba, New York is the next town over, is the onion capital of the world. So Larry was auctioning off a 40-pound bag of onions and a size large t-shirt from the local Libertarian Party. Now, do I look like I wear a size large? I don't. I wear much larger than a size large. I paid $60 for that bag of onions and for that too small t-shirt that I still wear sometimes, by the way, much to the chagrin of my poor wife. Hi, Lisa. She's watching live. By the way, I can't stand onions. I still got those onions in my freezer, you know. Anyway, you've heard me talk enough. Let's introduce somebody who's actually going to interest you. When she's not homeschooling, or being doctor of pharmacy, Jennifer Colasar. This former Democrat, who was gold-pilled by Ron Paul during the whole Ron Paul revolution. A lot of Ron Paul fans in the room, that's great, huh? It's fantastic. She became a staunch advocate for cannabis rights, Second Amendment rights, and after this speech, First Amendment rights. So without further ado, let's bring her up on the stage. Jennifer Colasar, come on up here.
is excited to send the status quo packing on Tuesday? Oh, sorry. Maybe I should say it again. Who here is excited to send the status quo packing on Tuesday? That's one U-Haul that would be taxpayer, that would be a good use of taxpayer money. So as Tony said, I'm a former Democrat, but I'm currently a registered Republican since the 2012 Ron Paul revolution, which many of you here were probably a part of, and maybe some of you were a part of it in '08. But I know some here have never even heard of Ron Paul. Some of you may have heard of Gary Johnson, who ran for the office of president on the Libertarian ticket in 2012 and 2016. Some people never followed Gary Johnson. Some people never followed libertarian politics at all until now. Some people might have heard the word libertarian, but maybe they didn't quite know what it meant. Maybe they never heard it at all, even though the party's been around since the early 1970s. Yet despite all that, here you are, you're all here in this room today. This goes to show the crossover appeal that Larry Sharpe has. Larry is a uniter, not a divider. He's exactly what we need in these times of polarized and hyper-partisan politics. I bet many here are Republicans, Democrats, independents, maybe people who never voted before, or people who were so disenfranchised and disgusted with the state of politics in New York that you didn't even bother to get off the couch on election night. But you don't have to be a libertarian to support Larry, or to realize that he's different from other candidates, especially these career politicians. A problem solver by nature, Larry's a man of integrity with the highest moral standards, the strongest and most tireless work ethic, superior intellect, a deep desire for transparency in government, and most of all, he's willing to do what it takes to make New Yorkers happy and restore their rights regardless of party. Larry's not here to dodge, deflect, pander, mudsling, or be considered the less of any evils. He's running on his own merit. His ideas are innovative and creative and just plain make sense. For these reasons, many people, although you may not be libertarians, you're Larrytarians, am I right? We should be voting for the person and for principle rather than party. This party line, lesser of two evils, voting like it's a football game, a horse race, or an ice cream cone has got to stop. Crayola colors aren't what we're supposed to be voting for, and neither are alphabet soup, R&D, or X, Y, and Z. Don't tell me that my only two choices are chocolate or vanilla when I know that mint chocolate chip exists. I don't feel that the Republican Party in New York State represents me or my best interests or the best interests of my family or the wonderful people of this beautiful state. It seems many members of the party represent the status quo, establishment politics as usual, including the SAFE Act, as well as antiquated laws against cannabis, which are not only devoid of logic, but are immoral and are the antithesis of individual liberty over our lives, our bodies, and our pursuit of happiness. And don't even get me started on the Democratic Party, because we'd be here all day. People are suffering, even with the current medical marijuana program we have. I'm a pharmacist. I've been in the dispensaries. They're run by pharmacists. The program is far too restrictive, only allowing certain conditions designated by the state, of course, arbitrary limits on the number of growers and the number of dispensaries, and even the price of the medication is set by the state. The prices are far out of reach for many. For example, 1/2 of 1 milliliter of cannabis oil for a vape pen, a vape oil cartridge, is $94 for 1/10 of a teaspoon. A bottle of oral CBD solution for 24 mLs, that's less than an ounce, $186, and many patients need multiple of these per month. Yeah. See me after the show. So the program is cost prohibitive for many, and the red tape to even get a recommendation. They're not a prescription because the doctors don't want to put their careers on the line. They're recommendations. And a card from the state to use medical cannabis can be overwhelming to some and just plain something they can't afford. There are many people, including veterans, who would like to try cannabis for various medicinal purposes, or even just because they want to, but are afraid to go on the record as a user of drugs for fear of being stripped of their gun rights. The fact that we even have to worry about such things is shameful in a society that's supposed to be free. Do we own our bodies, or does the government own them? Speaking of shameful, y'all know what's next. The SAFE Act. Who here likes it? Anyone? Yeah. People may tend to think of guns as a guy thing. Well, not me. As a woman and mom who's had break-in attempts at my home twice in the middle of the night, once while 8 months pregnant and home alone, and the other time with 3 children sleeping in the house, I'm outraged that politicians in this state, both Democrat and Republican, decided to stack the deck against women and in favor of violent aggressors, in favor of criminals who seek to do harm. And I won't go into the long laundry list of the crimes they intend to commit. There are children here. Criminals' intent to do harm don't follow laws. They don't say, hey, yeah, I'll risk shooting people, that's no biggie, but no way am I going to get popped on that SAFE Act for too many rounds in my magazine. But these politicians who passed the SAFE Act, making many New Yorkers violent felons overnight, simply for owning inanimate objects, they don't care. They still have their armed bodyguards, which you and I cannot afford. It makes it look like the politicians are doing something. It's feel-good legislation that actually hurts people. Maybe they don't care that an individual could be put in prison for defending themselves or their families with the wrong gun, too many rounds, or a magazine that's too big. Hey, good job fending off that gang of home invaders, lady, but now we have to put you in the paddy wagon for your gun that looks extra shooty and scary because some out-of-touch politician said so. You're going to prison for defending your life. I don't really think law enforcement wants to be put in that position. Should a victim have to say this to their aggressor, hold on, I have to reload because the SAFE Act says so? Do you think New Yorkers should have to be put in that position? The SAFE Act could cost innocent New Yorkers their lives in more ways than one. And there is only one ticket that is actually about taking the teeth out of and then repealing the SAFE Act. Only one ticket where both candidates have an A rating from Gun Owners of America. That ticket is Sharpe Hollister. I will never support a Republican ticket on which any candidate supports the SAFE Act. Who's with me? But tyranny is not only at the state level. We're also faced with what Larry has referred to as local bullies. I have a story of my own about local bullies, which I was asked to share with you today. Back in October, I was cited by Town of Vestal Code Enforcement for my 4x8-foot elevated Larry Sharpe campaign sign. Many of you may have seen it on Facebook or from the Vestal Parkway. I was cited because the town has an antiquated sign code that has regulations specific to political signage. The certified letter I received from code enforcement stated that my sign was too big. A copy of the political sign ordinance was enclosed. It stated that political signs are limited to 5 square feet and 42 inches in any one dimension. And these limits were distinct from all other types of political or temporary signage, rather. So they were treating political speech differently than religious speech and other types of speech on temporary signage. I posted on Facebook, on my page, and in Larry Sharpe's Freedom Base about my dilemma and my intent to fight the man, as they say. I had to stand up for my rights and the rights of others. I did some legal research and learned that content-based sign codes are unconstitutional, especially in light of a 2015 Supreme Court case out of Arizona known as Reed versus the Town of Gilbert. This set legal precedent that all temporary signs must be treated equally and that one type of speech cannot be given preferential treatment over another. Church bingo at 3 can't be treated differently than Larry Sharpe for governor. Many localities across the nation have, since this case, revised their sign codes to be content neutral in light of Reed v. Gilbert. So I went down to the code enforcement office and I spoke to the code enforcement officer and expressed my concerns about the constitutionality of the sign code. I even cited Reed v. Gilbert. He cut me off. He said, if you want to argue constitutionality, you go get a lawyer and tell it to the judge. I was told that if I didn't take my sign down in 7 days, I would be facing a $200 a day fine, an appearance ticket to appear in front of the Vestal town judge, and if I did not show up for that, there would be an arrest warrant issued for me. And here I was, just a mom, a taxpayer wanting to show support and increase name recognition for a third-party candidate for governor, and I was being treated like a criminal. Keeping my Larry sign up until the election would have cost me over $4,000 in fines. For freedom of speech. Who's the victim of my sign? Can anybody show me?
Yeah, the Democrats and the Republicans.
Exactly. The establishment, the status quo. I made phone calls in search of an attorney willing to help. I couldn't find anyone locally. So almost my entire 7-day period that I had to remedy this situation had passed. I was in the final days and I was getting increasingly stressed and anxious. Taking the sign down when they were the ones in the wrong was not an option in my mind. But I also didn't want to pay $4 grand to the government for doing nothing wrong. That's not my style. Finally, an attorney from the New York Civil Liberties Union said she could help. She called the town attorney, stating that she had serious concerns about the constitutionality of Vestal's sign code. She asked him if he was familiar with the Reed case, and he said no, so she sent him the information about it. He read it and promptly emailed her back, stating that they would not be enforcing the sign code upon me, pending further investigation. The NYCLU requested this statement sent to me in writing via a certified letter for my peace of mind. And she was not my retained attorney. She was simply calling as a facilitator. I still don't have that letter that he promised. The town is prolific in their letter writing when they're citing people on code violations such as roof shingles without a permit, storage containers with no permit, political signs, whatever. But when I requested a letter, they couldn't be bothered to write a sentence or two. And just think, we pay the salaries of these public servants. The NYCLU called the town attorney back, inquiring why I never received my letter. The town attorney stated that I would not be receiving a letter and that he's too busy. She asked if he would call me, and he said he'd try. I'm still waiting for that call. So the attorney from the NYCLU suggested that I write an email stating it's my understanding that you're not enforcing the code right now and the code is suspended in its entirety, and if I have this incorrect, please respond with corrections. I haven't heard anything. I think the town is hoping that this will just go away. But they should have Googled what libertarian means. I'm not going to let them trample on people's freedom of speech, and I, along with the NYCLU and the Institute for Free Speech, which is based out of Virginia, will be following up on this issue to make sure they won't be violating our First Amendment rights anymore going forward. And now to lighten it up a bit. How many of you remember the late Dr. Mark Allen Feldman, who ran for the Libertarian nomination for president in 2016 and gave the famous closing statement, "I'm that libertarian," which went viral. Allow me to keep Dr. Feldman's spirit alive with something I wrote myself. Some may ask, Jennifer, is she that Larry-tarian? Yes, I am that Larry-tarian. I'm that I'll speak my mind Larry-tarian, that it's not a crime Larry-tarian, that I'm keeping up my Sharpe sign Larry-tarian, that I refuse to pay your fines Larry-tarian, that I won't back down Larry-tarian, even if it doesn't please the crown Larry-tarian. I'm that spent a C note at the craft store Larry-tarian to make Sharpe t-shirts, hats, and signs on the floor Larry-tarian. I'm that sine wave Larry-tarian, that it's New York I'm trying to save Larry-tarian. I'm from the GOP Larry-tarian, but their candidate's not for me Larry-tarian. I'm that free the hemp and the weed Larry-tarian, that there are farmers and patients in need Larry-tarian. I'm that homeschooling freedom mom Larry-tarian. I'm that I want the Board of Regents, Common Core, and all unfunded mandates gone Larry-tarian. I'm that against the SAFE Act Larry-tarian, that it makes no one safer but criminals, and that's a fact Larry-tarian. I'm that let's end the establishment duopoly Larry-tarian. I'm that sick of the NICEAG and Spectrum corporate monopolies Larry-tarian. I'm that outspoken Larry-tarian. I'm that this system is corrupt and broken Larry-tarian. I'm that the taxes are too damn high Larry-tarian. I'm that big government's wasteful spending's the reason why Larry-tarian. I'm that end the status quo Larry-tarian. I'm that quit stealing our signs and content Molinaro Larry-tarian. I'm that my speech is too long Larry-tarian, but I had to finish strong Larry-tarian. I'm that Republicans and Democrats have no plan Larry-tarian. I'm that Larry Sharpe is the man Larry-tarian. I'm that for the governor's race, forget red and blue Larry-tarian. See what voting gold can do for you Larry-tarian. I am that Larry-tarian. Be a Larry-tarian with me. Go for the gold. Larry Sharpe for governor.
I'm expected to follow that.
You got the blazer, man.
I mean, okay, sure. I got the red, white, and blue Ariel. Great. Even that's not enough. Wow, that was fantastic. That was fantastic. Before we go any further today, can we thank Galaxy Brewing Company for sponsoring this event? I call it an event, but it's not just an event. It's a revolution, isn't it? Yeah. It's a revolution. Gil Scott-Heron very famously said that the revolution will not be televised. I see cameras here, so I don't think it's true. I don't think it really applies.
It'll be live streamed.
It will be. It's definitely being live streamed by almost everyone in the room, right? Yeah. All right. Outstanding. So, I know we're all here to hear from and about the next governor of New York, Larry Sharpe. Come on, we can do better than that. The next governor of New York, Larry Sharpe! Thank you, I knew you wouldn't let me down. Our next speaker is the founder and host of the Liberty Den. I'm sure many of you are aware of Liberty Den. And also the commander of the New York Lightfoot Militia, who has done security for a number of Larry's events. And thank you for keeping us safe. And really, I think that's all the introduction that George Corbello needs, because I think he's going to say the rest. Thank you.
How's everybody doing out there? Make me believe that you guys are excited to be here in Binghamton today. Let me hear it. 2 questions for you. Right hand up if you support and are in love with liberty. Right hand up. Okay, everybody's hands up, that's good. Left hand up if you support the Second Amendment. And now use those hands to clap for liberty and the Second Amendment. I'm done, thanks. Kidding. I'm never short-winded. Let me go to the beginning here. My name is George Corbello, founder of the Liberty Den, formerly known as the New York Revolution. I'm expecting an election revolution in 3 days. Yeah. Are you guys expecting that? Did you believe that, Larry? Do you think that is that enough?
I think you're lying.
Are you expecting an election revolution in 3 days? Let me hear it. All right, that's a little better. That's a little better. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I am a free-thinking constitutionalist. What that means is I am neither left or right. I am all about liberty. Yeah. Why? Yeah. Because every single one of us inherently know that we want to be free. Isn't that right? That's why I'm voting for Larry Sharpe. That's why. Because I know that that freedom can be given to us by Larry Sharpe winning the election and deregulating New York and letting us live free. So, there's 2 things I want to talk to you about today. What do we do going forward come the 7th after Larry's elected? What do we do? And we walk off the hangover. That's the first thing on the list, okay? And then number 2, I want to talk to you about the 2nd. Yeah. I want to talk to you about the 2nd. So let's go to what we do afterwards. How many of you guys love Andrew Hollister? Andrew! How many of you guys, I know, these are dumb questions, I know. How many of you guys love Larry Sharpe? Larry! How many of you guys love the platform that Hollister and Sharpe bring to you? How many of you guys love that? Your love for freedom, your love for liberty should come first. No offense, guys. It should come first. First and foremost. Why? Because once Larry is elected, we have more work to do. We have more work to do. Let's see. Ronald Reagan, I don't want to misquote Reagan, okay? He says, freedom is never more than 1 generation away from extinction. 1 generation away from extinction. So, yeah, we get our guys in there. That doesn't mean we sit back and let them do the work. Larry's promised us to break a hole in that wall, and he's expecting every single one of us to follow him through that wall. Seeds of freedom in the hearts and minds of everybody we speak to. Seeds of freedom. Be a planter, be a farmer. Everybody that you speak to that's willing to listen. Everybody that you speak to, be an example of what freedom is like. Plant those seeds through your example, through your words. Follow Larry's lead. And I can guarantee you, for generations to come, there will be New Yorkers that love what is inherent in their souls, and that is liberty.
Woo! Yeah.
So we got work to do after Sharpe, who nobody ever calls him Sharpe, Larry, after Larry becomes elected. And that is to continue to spread the word, become active, remain active, always. How many ups and downs have we had throughout this campaign? Lots, correct? Did we stop? No. Are we going to stop? No. Will we ever stop?
Absolutely not.
Thank you. So, the other thing I want to talk to you about is the Second Amendment. And I didn't tell my wife that I was going to take my clothes off here. She probably wouldn't be too happy about it. But one of the other speakers said, there's only one candidate, one party that's talking about the Second Amendment, in support of the Second Amendment. It's not just holding back any more gun restrictions. It is about restoration of our civil liberties, the Second Amendment. And that is, hold on for a sec. This is what I want to do for you guys. You want this? You want the Second Amendment?
Yeah.
You vote Larry Sharpe. I know, a little melodramatic, but I had to make a point, okay? This is the only option you have, and I'm glad I took off that shirt because, man, I was hot. So let's talk about Larry's platform, the Second Amendment platform, which I absolutely love. My belief is that an armed society is a polite society. An armed society is a peaceful society. And an armed society keeps its liberty. We must maintain the Second Amendment. So what do we see here in New York from our fellow Second Amendment groups?
The worship of Monero.
Traitors.
Traitors to our liberty. Traitors to our freedom. Traitors to the Second Amendment. A profound show of a lack of understanding of the purpose of the Second Amendment over party politics. That's what we're seeing. Fortunately, we had one group here in New York, Gun Owners of America, New York. They did the right thing. And they actually raided Larry and Andrew, despite the fact that they were not prior politicians, which was the reason that the other 2A group said that they weren't going to raid them. They raided them on platform. So let's look at that. Molinaro. He got an A.
Wait. I thought he was out of this race.
He will be very soon. Tuesday he'll be done.
I thought he was done a week ago.
Love you, Trish. Larry Sharpe, also an A. Right? Molinaro got an A because he had a track record of voting against gun restrictive laws, despite the fact that he refuses to talk about the SAFE Act, despite the fact that he refuses to answer questions about the SAFE Act, and he soft pedals his way all the way out the door so he doesn't have to answer any questions about the SAFE Act.
Coward!
Let's go to the Lieutenant Governor. My good. Andrew Hollister, who I've known for, it feels like I raised him. Feels that way. I've known him for so long. I consider him to be a real good friend, a fellow patriot. Andrew's the kind of guy that I had a medical issue last year. Andrew showed up. That's the kind of man that he is. He cares. He showed up. He didn't have to. He drove hours to come and see me. Andrew Hollister with GOA New York, rated an A. Why not an A+, I don't know, but he got an A. Killian. Oh. Killian rated a D. Have you ever met a Republican that supported, outside Killian, the red flag bill? No. Have you ever met a Republican that wants to increase the SAFE Act? That wants to raise the age limit to 21? No. Neither have I. Hence D. So even the AG for the Libertarian Party rated an A. And the Republican Party AG rated a B. So overall, according to Gun Owners of America, New York, the Libertarian Party is stellar around the Second Amendment. Stellar. Yes. Number one. So, for me, the Second Amendment protects all of our civil liberties. All of them.
Hear, hear.
I don't care how much you support the First Amendment. If we don't have our Second Amendment, tyranny will reign supreme. And it's up to us to make sure that we do our due diligence with the two things that we've discussed here today: liberty and the Second Amendment. Liberty and the Second Amendment. Liberty and the Second Amendment. I'm looking forward to shaking the hand of New York's new governor, Larry Sharpe. Stay vigil, folks. We'll see you soon.
George, the proper phrasing of that for getting a chair is the next governor of New York, Larry Sharpe. I thought we had established that. The red team and the blue team. No booze for that? No booze for the red and the blue team? Thank you. Thank you. I feel better. Thank you. They're talking a lot about the MTA, which is an important issue if you live, east of the Hudson River. There's only one ticket that's talking about any of New York west of the Hudson River. And that is Andrew Hollister and the next governor of New York, Larry Sharpe. I wasn't too good in geography. We are west of the Hudson, right? I say that because our next speaker, who has the clever nickname, the Taxpayers Watchdog.
Boom! Yes. Boom! See, come on, boom!
Oh.
Boom! Yeah!
The Taxpayers Watchdog.
Boom!
I I didn't know there was a sound effect that went along with that. Sorry,
I
Mike.
made it up.
He's a former Cicero town councilor. Now, when the rest of the Cicero town council, and Cicero is a suburb of Syracuse if you're not aware, the rest of the Cicero town council voted themselves a pay raise. Not Mike.
They didn't raise your taxes at the same time. Look at Cicero.
Oh, they got to do 2-for-1.
2-for-1 deals. Close with me. Go ahead, sorry.
No, you're introducing
Go ahead.
your.
No.
Why am I even
I
here?
wanna introduce
You didn't really need me. I mean, this man really does need no introduction from me. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring to the stage my friend, former town councilor, taxpayer watchdog, and starting power forward for the LA Lakers.
Oh, thank you.
I told you I was going to lie about you, Mike. I told you that coming in. Mike Bacallo.
Yeah! Hello. Is this is on, right? Yeah, good. All right. So, I have a couple broken toes, so I'm a little under the weather. But as Larry always says, bleed with me. I'll broken bones with you. Is that fair enough? Awesome. Before I begin, I'm going to send around some clear pictures. I do not ever want my candidates who I support ever to ask you for money, especially when I'm here. Please do what you can. I want these suckers full by the end of this. Can we do that? Can we do that? I'll even start. Can you hold that for me? Here we go. There. I'll begin. Fantastic. So you all know a little bit about me and who I am. So if you've seen me speak, I like to become friends with everyone in this room, even though I believe you already are. So at the count of 3, I would like all of you to yell your names to me. Can we do that?
Are you going to repeat them all?
No, I can't do that. So 1, 2, and 3. That was pathetic. Do it again. 1, 2, and 3. It's a little better. I don't know if any of you have seen me speak before, but it's a very... I want audience participation as much as possible. So I know a lot of you have those Sharpe Hollister signs that you brought. You haven't used much yet. I need you to use it now, okay? So whenever I say Larry or Andrew or Sharpe Hollister ticket, I need all of you to yell and scream. We'll practice, okay? Sharpe Hollister! That's all right. Sharpe Hollister! A little better. Awesome. Binghamton. This is my first time in Binghamton since last week. So I come here quite a bit. I love me some Binghamton. So.
I love me some Cicero.
Oh, I love me some Cicero too. Cicero's amazing. Oh man. So these rallies are for our candidates. Larry and do it again. And Andrew have been working their tails off for over a year. So what we can give them is not only filling up those pictures, is you need to give them the energy to finish. My friends, this is the 4th quarter. You know what we do in the 4th quarter? We turn up the screws. We take it to our opponents. Let's hear it. 4th quarter. 4th quarter. 4th quarter. 4th quarter. We finish strong. Okay? That's how we finish. I'm so excited. We have 3 days left. 3 days. I can't hear you. What?
2 minutes left in the fourth.
That's what I'm telling you. Is that close? 3 days left. 3 days left. That's right. So when I spoke a couple weeks ago in Utica, we had a little bit of a class. I talked to everybody about 3 things I'd like them to do. I jumped off the stage in Syracuse, so I won't do it here. So I'll use the steps. So, class. For all those who weren't here in Utica, there was a couple things I asked of everybody. Very simple task. Who was here for Utica? Couple people. All right, so we got to refresh for everybody. So in Utica, I told everybody, number 1. When I say number 1, I need you to say number 1 back to me. Number 1. Number 1. Hold up them very sharp signs. Let's go cheer. More. people over here. I didn't realize that. Fantastic. So my crew that's over here. Fantastic speech. It's hard to follow you. So, fantastic. So what I need you all to do, so we'll let you learn right now. So number one, I told everybody in Utica is when you talk to people, life is not a debate. Talk to people with your heart, to their heart. I gave everyone that was in Utica a gold star for what they did the last couple weeks. It started with the protests of the debates. Remember those, Steve, right? We had a blast, right?
It was a great time.
Awesome, awesome. So what we did was we protested outside News Channel 3. And you know what that happened? We got a news story out of it, right? And we posted that sucker online, as Larry always asks us to do. You know what happened? That brought thousands of people watching that debate on Thursday. And you know what happened at that debate on Thursday? Larry picked it. I'll watch my later. Larry Sharpe, that's over New York. Stand up, Larry. Pick that in. That's not loud enough. Where's Andrew, by the way? My glasses aren't on. Where is he? Where is he? Where are you? I'm coming over. The next lieutenant governor of New York State, Andrew, how about that? Boom. Pretty quick with some brother toes, right? So, Larry, how did you like that little softball we served you? You knocked it out of the park. You knocked the laces off that ball on Thursday night. Number two, I asked everyone when we were in Utica to please introduce yourselves to people, talk to them, enjoy the conversation. But then at the end of it, for those who were here in Utica, what was it? It was tell everyone at the end of your conversation to vote for who? Vote for who? That's right. I was at the mall, Destiny USA, on Friday. So it's yesterday. It's only Saturday. You know what happened? I was walking around the mall. I mean, I'm very famous right now, right? I was walking the mall, and you know what people did to me? They walked up to me, talked to me, and what did they say? You gotta give it to me, man. Ready?
Vote for Larry Sharpe.
Wasn't good enough. What did they say? Vote for Larry Sharpe! That's right! That's right! What did they say to me?
Vote for Larry Sharpe.
More. Vote for Larry Sharpe! Coming to you.
Vote for Larry Sharpe.
That's what I'm talking about. Who's the next governor of New York State? Back to the stage. All right. Number three, I told everyone that was in Utica to paint your town gold. I'm colorblind, so gold and yellow look the same to me, so I apologize for that. And I asked everyone, Halloween. I said, Halloween's a wonderful holiday to really show your love for gold, your love for Larry, and your love for Andrew. The Sharpe Hollister ticket. Yeah, your candidates are here. Show them some love. What I saw was, I actually walked around on Halloween in my neighborhood. It was pretty sweet. So what we saw is we actually had a neighbor. I guess someone listened to me. It rarely happens. They designed their house as the Cuomo Haunted Mansion. It was fantastic. It was fantastic. Signs of higher taxes, leave. I walked up, put a Larry Sharpe sign in that yard. Put a Larry Sharpe in that yard, and I just started cheering, Larry, 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 now Larry, now Larry. So gold stars around for everyone. But now those three assignments have turned into the final exam, right? Final exam. Fourth quarter. Fourth quarter. You should say it with me. Fourth quarter. Part one of that final exam. This is the final steps here. Our candidates have done an amazing job reaching out to everyone for over a year. But what do we have to make our citizens, our fellow citizens in our state do? They have to get out the vote, right? They have to vote. So what do we need? We all in here, your final exam, part one, is to make sure your friends, your family actually get to the polls, right? Yeah. That's not loud enough, guys. If we're going to win, people need to vote. Yeah. What do they need to do? They need to vote. For who? Go back over here, sorry. So things I've done last couple of years, I'm getting scolded, I'm sorry, I'm very sorry. So things I've done, repeat myself for the 5th time. In my town, what I do is I make sure I put out phone calls to people that I know cannot make it to the polls unless they have a ride. I give them rides to the polls. That's idea number 1. Everyone in here should try to do that this year. That is huge. Everything I tell you is simple. I always call it stupid simple. Because guess what wins? Stupid simple. Okay? Second thing is, I usually get my friends, I'll drag them in my vehicle, and I bring them to the polls to make sure that they actually vote, right? Yeah. Right? Make sure they actually vote. So that's the second thing I do. Third thing that I do is all the contacts in my phone. Being a person who lives in New York, the majority of the people that I know live in New York, so I have about 1,000 people in my contacts. Guess what I do? I make my wife call all those people, okay? It's not fun, but it needs to be done. The dirty work that I love doing. So we call everybody. So if you don't know what to say, here's something that you can say. It's my gift to all of you today. So my gift is, call up, you say, hello, blank, fill in whatever the name is. So, hello, Larry. Good morning. It's your dear friend, Michael. You're an amazing human being. You know why? You know why you're an amazing human being? Because today's election day. And what are you going to do on election day, Larry? Netflix? Vote for Larry! Vote for Larry Sharpe? That's right! That's right! Fantastic. Part 2 of your assignments. I know, part 2 of your final exam. There's only 3 parts, we're almost done. I gotta wrap the room up for our big 2 speakers coming up. Part 2, what you need to do in the next final exam is, believe it or not, everybody in here, right, is devoted to this cause, right, to this movement. There's a lot of people that aren't here today that will, in fact, vote for Larry Sharpe, but it's not a part of their everyday living. I didn't realize this. I thought everyone was excited about politics. When I first ran for office, you realize that it's not a part of everyone's daily grind that you do. So what we do is the signs that are around my town, the signs that are around your towns, they get stale after a week or 2. So if they've been up for a while, believe me, they're definitely stale with mold growing on them. So what you need to do, just an idea, you can steal it, it's not patented. We put balloons on signs, so people start to look at those again. And then they'll drive by and look and go, oh my gosh, I think today could be election day. And Larry's signs are so great, they have a date on it, right? It's awesome. Who are we going to vote for November 6th? Who are we going to vote for? November 6th? And Andrew, don't forget that. Yeah. So, signs, it's great. They're here to remind you, oh yeah, vote for Larry. It's a great idea. Perfect. So it's awesome. The second one is, you know what? People like me sometimes need to burn energy. You know what? Hold a sign up out in front of the polling places. That also works fantastic. So the last part of your final exam is, in fact, went above my nose. All right, perfect. Last part of your final exam is making sure you tell people that the vote is going to be a very, very, very high turnout, right? And what we all need to do today is tell people the reason why that high turnout is going to be because people are going to vote for what ticket? I can't hear you. That's right. Okay? You may wonder why that is. People vote for who they believe is going to win. People want to be a part of the winning team, right? As someone who's been a fan of the New York Knicks, it stinks being a Knicks fan because we stink, right? Not the Larry and Andrew team, right? Who's going to win? More! Give me more! Sharpe! Yes, my man! Yes! I gotta come back down there now. It's getting quiet again. We're almost like a minute left. So, you may wonder why I act the way I do. I'm passionate about this. I'm passionate about this movement. I had the opportunity to have dinner with Larry last year. It was awesome. That was a good dinner. It was good. Yeah, the dinner, it was okay. Right? It was steak. It was in Syracuse. It's Scotch and sirloin, they were, right? Yeah, Clapton Scotch and sirloin. So after dinner, I learned 3 things. You notice that number always comes up a lot with me. 3 things about Larry. The first one was pretty simple. My friend Larry had an actual plan for New York State, right? I've run for office multiple times. The majority of the people that run do not have plans. I gotta stay on stage? Sorry, I was told I could walk around. I'm sorry. Sorry. You want to come up with me? You want to come up? Come on. What's your name? Scarlett. Sure, we're Scarlett, right? Come on up. Scarlett, you can stand right here. Right there. Right there. You 5? No? 5? Yes, I'll take it. You can hold that sign. That's great. So he had a plan. Nobody else running this campaign currently has one. The second part of that was Larry was going to listen to me and my ideas. I know I look like I'm a little crazy, but I actually have good ideas, right? Larry can say yes or no. You can find out. So he listened to it, and he's actually using some of those in his campaign now. But what I'm going to leave you with, the third one, which I find most important, Tony, you can come up as I'm speaking now. The last one was, he has this, okay? We all have a heart, but Larry has a strong, strong heart. He cares about me. He cares about all of you. He cares about everybody who is not here today. He wants happy New Yorkers. That I can work with. Okay? We all can work with that. So I give you, my good friends, the next winning ticket in New York State for governor and lieutenant governor, who? Sharpe! Larry! Awesome.
I got it. Hey, thanks for bleeding into these pictures, by the way. You guys are awesome. Oh, there's more pictures around the room. I'm gonna put these right here. So if you want to bleed a little more, and please leave the bar and tip generously, because that's what we as libertarians like to do.
No, we like to give gifts.
Oh, sorry. Gifts, not tips. He was asked the natural question, so why aren't you a libertarian? Come on, switch your registration. Come on. You know the high pressure sell. How many of us have gotten that high pressure sell from somebody in the Libertarian Party? A few of us, that's right. It worked on me, by the way. He came in, he ran for city council in Rochester. He ran a great race as a Republican, as somebody who didn't come from Team Blue, but someone who didn't have a D next to his name. He placed respectably in that race, gained a lot of respect. The first person who wasn't a Democrat to do respectably in that race for a very, very long time. We're talking decades here. So fast forward, calls me up one night. He says, "Hey Tony, Larry's called me and he wants me to run with him as lieutenant governor. Are you okay with that?" "Why are you asking me?" "Yeah, sure, I'm okay with that. You'd be fantastic." I'm paraphrasing here. So he's been a great candidate. A candidate so great that he has a store at the mall named after him.
I need Chris to speak.
You want Chris to speak?
Yes.
One right now? Yes. Okay. Actually, I've been told that we're changing the program up a little bit. But thank you for indulging me on my speech on Andrew Hollister. Chris Olensky, are you out there? Could you come up to the stage? Your presence is requested at the microphone.
Somebody ordered Zelensky?
Yeah, I did. For here too, by the way. I'm sorry, where's my ketchup? No, I'm just kidding. So without further ado, the man who's responsible for this venue, for getting this venue for us tonight. Chris, go ahead.
Short people problems. There's over 1,100 people watching hybrid. Oh, really? Thanks. As if I've ever spoke publicly before. Thank you for letting me know there's over 1,100 people watching right now. All right, this is obviously unexpected. I think it's being paid homage that I've set this up. This is my hometown, so thank you, Larry. I appreciate it. Can you hear me now? All right. I don't have anything prepared. I've never really been in front of a crowd to speak publicly before. It's actually my first time, so please bear with me. Speak into the mic. I met Larry personally as a result of battling Andrew Cuomo for years now. I am a recovered alcoholic.
You're the only one.
All right.
You know, previous to 10 years ago, I'm not going to dismiss my behavior and say that it didn't deserve reform, but I was caught drunk driving 6 times. Okay, I can say, however, that I haven't hurt anybody. There was no accidents. Nobody was ever killed. But I was on a collision course to possibly do that if I didn't make changes in my life. So I decided enough was enough, and I went into rehab. I've been over 10 years sober now. You know, I worked HVAC in this community here for over 5 years, doing boilers, water heaters, furnaces, and just giving back good service to the people of our community. And while I was rating out my revocation administratively, I had what was formerly known as a permanent revocation. And by that, permanent meant that there was no conditional, there was no hardship, there was no chance to get a license back until I actually waited out the extent of my revocation. But that meant that there was hope, that I could do the right thing in the meantime and get my life straight. As a result of doing the right thing, a few years later, my lovely daughter was born. From there, I set my sights on creating my own small business. Be a plumber, a carpenter, a handyman, and just doing the things that people need done, charging a decent, fair price. And carrying on the traditions that my grandfather had taught me with his tools. But for the last 11 years, those tools have sat in storage, and I haven't been able to use them. It was the day of 2012, excuse me, Governor Andrew Cuomo used his executive emergency order to institute truly permanent revocations for those of us who are recidivist drunk drivers. And what that meant was we were never going to have the opportunities to ever get back on the road again, regardless if we carried over 10 years worth of documentation from OASIS, from personal and private counselors. It didn't matter. We were being held as basically worse than, well, the bottom of the barrel, okay? I decided that I wasn't going to take that as an answer. That after changing who I was to get back to our community, that my daughter deserved a better life too, and I wasn't going to take that as an answer. So I started to sit with our local leaders. I've reached out to our county executive, Jason Garner. I've seen Fred Akshar on this. I've also sat down with Assemblywoman Donna Lapardo. And coming back directly from our local officials, the only way that this is going to change is if you get a new governor in office, because this is his thing and he doesn't want to touch it. And that's embarrassing. We live in a state where we have second chances, where we may have made mistakes once, twice, 3, 6 times in my case. Sorry, it was hard to get over. But once we did it, we should not be held permanently punished. So what else are we going to do? Our case went all the way to the Court of Appeals, and we ended up losing. We battled it on the front of ex post facto, and that means you don't retroactively punish somebody after the law changes. And that only applies, according to the Supreme Court, that only applies to law and not administrative rulemaking and policy. So it was a way that they slipped it in. They were basically going to do whatever they wanted, and there was no way to change it, regardless of the legislatures in 2009, 10, and 11 saying, no, we know the collateral damage that this will cause people. The governor did it anyway. And that's exactly what the judges asked in the Court of Appeals. If the people have spoken and they said, no, but you did it anyway, what gives you that right? They used the Constitution to say that the legislature allows the DMV to write rules and regulatory policy as they see fit.
King Cuomo must go!
So that case was heard in March of 2017, and we ended up getting a decision in June. And respectfully, the judges ruled according to law, and we lost the case. But where did that leave me and the other 20,000 people that it was reported that were left here in this abyss? What do we do? And that's just 20,000 people that are on record. We have no idea exactly how many people it affects when it comes to our children, our wives, our aging and elderly parents that we need to take care of, or the rest of society that many of us, because we can't get a decent job, are actually eligible for public subsidies. That puts the burden on you now too, okay? And I'm sorry. So for the next several months, it was hard, and but we bared through it. We kept setting down of legislatures, and we found each other, started the online group. And it was in early February, I believe, just thumbing through Facebook, I saw this Larry Sharpe for governor guy, and I'm like, ooh, I gotta send him a message. Okay, I don't know anything about him, but I gotta send him a message, because he's somebody I need to talk to. Cuomo needs to go. I'm gonna talk to every single candidate there is. I didn't hear anything back in response until the next week when I actually saw that there was a Governor's House radio show. And I called in. And I got on the line, and I asked, I said, you know, Larry, have you heard about this thing with the DMV? And he cuts me off, all right? And he says, are you the guy that sent me the Facebook message? And I was blown away just by that the guy actually read the message, okay? Like, number one, that was awesome. But he was honest about it. He was honest to the point where he says, you know, I didn't know about this. And many of you may have not even known that this had happened here in New York either. But he said, I could tell you conceptually it's wrong. And I'm gonna put my policy team on it, and we'll look into it, and I'll get back to you. Yeah, okay, we'll look into it and get back to you, right? We've all heard that before. It was actually a week later in the next governor's house, another one of our supporters had called in and asked him about it, and Larry ran with it. And he started to hit details that I knew that he actually put his policy team on that the general public had no idea about. And
Larry!
That's where I knew. I said, I gotta meet this guy and I gotta see him in person. Well, a week later, he was actually here at the DoubleTree in Binghamton, and I brought my daughter, okay? So I saw him personally, one-on-one, listen what he had to say, and I also showed him some of the personal things that I've been going through in my family life, too. me maintaining sobriety, I can't say the same for my daughter's mom. I still love her, but it's over. And it's what happens when people choose to go back to their addictions. Sometimes you just have to walk away from it. But I've also been caught up in the family court now for the last several years, basically fighting for the rights for me to stay with my daughter. And after I heard Larry speak in person and meeting him, I made a decision to put him in contact with the New York State Fathers' Rights Movement.
Yeah.
From there, this campaign has just blossomed, where they've actually invited me all over the state. For a guy who actually doesn't have a driver's license, to have a candidate as governor, look at somebody with a past like mine and having a record and understanding that I'm not that person anymore, and still be willing to give me back the opportunity to get my life back on the road, contrary to what the current governor says, is somebody that I will stand for, not only for this election, but to wherever he goes after this. I cannot give my thanks and gratitude more to all of you that I've met across the state. Like I said, for a guy who hasn't been able to get around by himself, this campaign, this team, and these supporters have taken me, where are we? I've been everywhere, Plattsburgh, down to the city, I've been to Albany, all over the state here with Larry and Andrew, meeting you, and I love you all. Just the amount of energy, the amount of support, the amount of just small town stories with people like me, okay? Just regular, normal people, everyday people. That's what we are. The state is the people and not the government, and that's what Larry is doing, is putting that power back into our hands and allowing us to take control of our lives again. I don't have much more to say. I gotta get off the stage because the man of the hour needs to speak, okay? I wasn't really expecting this, but nonetheless, Larry, thank you so much. You're my friend to the end.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
For the tall people.
Wow, I have my very own microphone concierge. All right, now where was I? Oh yeah, Andrew Hollister. One more thing before I introduce a video here that's really going to introduce Andrew, is that his selfie line after this is all over is going to be a lot shorter than Larry's. So please, get yourself a selfie with Andrew. Get yourself the complete collection, please. Thank you. So without further ado, Andrew's wife Yolanda couldn't be here, but she sends a message that is about to play on the screen.
Hi, my name is Yolanda. My husband, Andrew Hollister, is running for Lieutenant Governor along with Larry Sharpe this year, and I'm really excited about it. And I wanted to share a story with you. So this was in Anthony Square, but was very fitting because if it wasn't for her, I would not have the right to vote this year. So I'm an immigrant. I immigrated here from Czech Republic, and I get to vote this year, which is really exciting. So last year I applied for my citizenship. It was the same year that Andrew ran for city council, and I was really hoping I would get to vote for him as my first time casting a vote, because how cool would that be? But I did not get my citizenship in time. I did, however, meet Larry Sharpe at the same time, and I loved him after that. I was never really someone who was interested in politics, but meeting somebody who was so down to earth and really had good principles and wanted to take me in a great direction meant a lot to me. So when I became a citizen this year and I found out he was running for governor, I was really excited that was going to be the first vote I get to cast. To make things even better, Andrew actually ended up running with him as lieutenant governor after I got my citizenship, so now I got to vote for two of my favorite people. But the other reason it's so exciting, other than getting to vote for them, is that I get to cast a historical vote this year. When these two win, it's going to be historic for the whole United States, and I get to be a So I'm urging you, if you've never voted, whether you weren't a citizen or are now invitation to go out and vote. I would love it if you could come join me to cast this historical vote in this election and help make a new New York.
A new New York.
I believe that for every single person in this room, a new New York means something different. It does. Today, two of the things we talked about today were liberty and family. Liberty and family is one of the most important things in this state for people, period. Now, some of you may or may not know this, but I haven't been politically active for very long. Politics, political activism, I'm actually kind of new to that. I'm kind of new to that compared to many people who have been in politics for decades. I had opportunities to get involved, but they didn't push me to get involved. For example, at a young age, I started my first business. You would think that as a small business owner, the regulations and the taxes and the burden that New York State puts on our small businesses would have pushed me to become politically active. For some reason it didn't. Then I became a homeowner. And let me tell you, the property tax in New York State, that pushes a lot of people to get active. A lot of people. Our school taxes, I didn't even have kids yet. Couldn't believe how much I was paying in school taxes. That didn't push me to get politically active either. In fact, it wasn't until 2013 when Governor Cuomo signed the SAFE Act. Yeah. Yep. When Cuomo signed the SAFE Act, he trampled on my liberty. He trampled on my liberty, and that's when I woke up to politics in New York State. Now here's the thing. Why didn't I wake up with those other things? I'll tell you why. I thought it was normal to be oppressed. I thought it was normal to be oppressed because I grew up in New York. Born and raised in Rochester. Upstate New York, where I hope is always my home. Something changed a few years ago, though. I got married. When I got married, my wife and I started to plan our family. We started to plan for children.